Hi, I'm Mark Lawson, president of the ECS Publishing Group, and I am here with David Cherwien, who serves as Cantor at the Mount Olive Lutheran Church in Minneapolis and as artistic director of the National Lutheran Choir. We're going to talk about choral music in the post-pandemic world. So David, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
You serve two very distinctly different positions, okay? And I thought it might be good just to do a little overview of the program size and what kind of choirs you're in front of.
I really love the juxtaposition of Tuesday and Wednesday evenings in my life, under normal circumstances. Tuesday night, I meet with the National Lutheran Choir, which is an audition choir of about 60 singers. And we do 4 programs per year and a tour. We do a series with Morning Star that we contribute to and record for. So that's one experience. The other is Wednesday night, I do Mount Olive's Cantor, which is our adult choir. We're about between 30 and 40 singers, as you know how that works with church choirs. Although they're pretty reliable, I have to say, this group. It's a smaller experience and a very different experience. On Tuesday night, we expect everybody comes with everything learned and that we shape from there. Wednesday night, I build the learning into the rehearsal, but we also shape as we go as well. But it is very different experiences, but equally fragile.
Yeah. And so both are just kind of getting started back to rehearsing in person, correct?
The church, we went online for most of the pandemic by creating Sunday at home liturgies for people, videos for people to do liturgy at home. And for choral music, occasionally I would assemble a small group of 4 to 8 singers that would be 6 to 8 feet apart and record a piece. And we'd have just enough time to get together, quickly learn it, and record it and include it on those videos. But in June of this past summer, we started back with in-person liturgies, but not with the choir yet. In September, the choir started back up. We moved our rehearsals to a larger room where we could spread the chairs apart much farther. That has made a big difference for them. The National Lutheran Choir also resumed in-person rehearsals in September. And we did the same thing. We've moved our rehearsals to a larger area where we could spread out quite a bit. And we don't have our first program until November. So we haven't had a public event yet. So yeah, they both started in September very eagerly.
Yeah, and both masked, I assume.
Yeah, we had to do all of the precautions with that. We said you have to be vaccinated if you're going to sing with the choir. I said if you're unvaccinated at the church, I worded it, if you're unvaccinated, perhaps sing with us at a later date. With National Lutheran Choir, I could say you can't be on the roster unless you've had vaccination. And I lost a couple of singers over that in that choir, but I think that was for the good of the whole group. Very important for them to know that everyone in that room is vaccinated. That's really been appreciated, I think.
Yeah, well, I would assume that the two groups are a little different in coming back. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what kind of challenges are you facing with them?
Well, it was at the church here, it was going very well for about 2 weeks. And then we had rehearsal one Wednesday late toward the end of September. And on Thursday, I woke up feeling something funny in the back of my throat and went and got tested. And sure enough, I had COVID. So we quickly pulled back for 2 weeks just to make sure there was no spreading going on in the choir. I had no idea where it came from. But last night we resumed and they all came back and nobody's worried. I think what happened or what we learned through that was, first of all, recognizing that we're going to be with this pandemic, I think, for a lot longer than many of us wished we were, but it's going to be with us for a while. Outbreaks are going to happen. There are going to be people who get it, even breakthrough vaccinated people. But what we learned is the vaccine still did its job, because for me, it was just very little more than a minor head cold for 2 days. And nobody else caught it from me. So nobody else in either group tested positive. So that too is not just sheer luck. That was the vaccine doing its workload, because the spreadability is less intense with vaccination and vaccinated people. So, I think for us just to take 2 weeks off was all we needed. And last night they came back, they're raring to go.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned at the beginning that you feel like that both groups have a certain fragility. What are some of the things you're thinking about with those groups?
Well, most of it has to do with the fear around COVID and not wanting to be that next choir that shuts the world's choral work down, Yeah. And I was, of course, thinking, oh my gosh, if that's my name that gets published all over the world, my choir, it's not a vain thing. You just don't want to be the one who's hurting other people inadvertently. But I think people are worried about catching it and what would happen to them if they did. I think it's that fear and stigma that is the biggest problem. So if people feel like they're safe, if that how we're doing something is safe, that's what they needed to know.
What have you been doing to, as they come back in a couple of areas? One seems to be a theme of connection, community, togetherness. Another is our voices aren't quite where they were, or our abilities maybe aren't quite where they were. Are you facing those, and how are you dealing with those?
That's interesting. I think we, in both cases, both groups, I and all of the singers expected this, having to start having stepped back 5 paces in our abilities. And we didn't find that in either place, that the National Choir people came back and says, wow, I'm able to sing stuff I wasn't able to before, so maybe the rest was good. And the same with the church choir, nobody likes singing with a mask on. I mean, that's annoying. And they sound a little muffled as a group. And they know that, but I think they realize we'd much rather do that than not at all, sing it all together. So being together is critical, but I think we're starting out in a better place. Part of that might also be, I've been very intentional about the pieces that we're singing, the literature.
I was going to ask you about that. Mm-hmm.
First of all, when I wanted to make sure that the first couple of things we did were very successful, and it's success, I mean, we were able to get to a point where they just simply sounded good and the whole group knows it. Directors know that feeling when a group sings something and everybody in the room knows, hey, this is sounding really good, that it's just that feeling of, yeah, okay, this is worth it. Starting with something that I knew we could get to a really pretty far along place with it pretty quickly, then that kind of feeds that eagerness to do more and eased back in that way. I think that was very important.
Have you done anything in particular about recruitment with trying to get singers back? I was thinking you told me offline that you had some new singers that joined you at church. And then, of course, you have an audition process at National Lutheran Choir. So what have you found in this time of recruitment?
Part of the church recruitment was the fact that we were doing online stuff, which I'm sure other people are experiencing too. Ours weren't live stream events. They were recording, the music on those were recordings of liturgies past. So I thought that was important because hymnody then was an assembly singing. It wasn't two voices in a microphone with an organ, which can be a lovely sound too. But this was real assembly singing. So the full organ was accompanied by a full assembly. And I also put choral literature in that the choir had sung from years past. And that kind of did a little bit of recruiting on its own. So we had some people who got to know us through those Sunday releases that we did and wanted to be a part of it. Probably the same thing happened with the National Lutheran Choir with our virtual programming and our small group recordings, that we were around still. We were on people's screens, literally, their lives that way. And to my surprise, most of our audition processes for the National Lutheran Choir were virtual. So they had to submit videos of singing, and then we Zoom audition after that. And then if they were a finalist for the roster, I would assemble 3 other singers to sing with them so that we hear the compatibility part. So we did that in a very, very safe way. But to my surprise, again, that did not drop. The interest did not drop for new people to want to be a part of the group. So that was very encouraging.
That's good. I know there are many people out there who are kind of struggling to get started again, maybe rethinking or rebuilding. Any words of advice of what you think about as you're starting that new year, or as you're analyzing what you should do? Any thoughts in that regard?
Part of it is through, I used to kind of roll my eyes at all the precautionary things, like, oh, okay, we can do that, but inside I was feeling they were unnecessary. The fact that I contracted it myself and didn't spread it in 2 rehearsal contexts told me how important those things we were doing are, that requiring vaccination, for example, that's so critical. But masking, and that one is so annoying. There are some people that said, I won't sing if we have to mask. And I said, well, okay, sorry, we're going to sing with masks. So call us next year, but
Yeah.
that didn't happen. I think people realize it's what we have to do. And then spacing apart, I think making sure that people are safe that way. With the church choir, those first 2 weeks, we went ahead and sang in the balcony, the choir loft here, where we couldn't space out as much, and with our supposedly not worrying about it attitude. Well, now after my having contracted it as a breakthrough case, I think, yes, we do need to worry about that. So what the church choir is doing is we rehearse together in that wide open fashion, but they sign up for 1 of 2 services so that each service has about half the choir in it, so they can be up in the balcony and be safe, because it's probably going to happen again where somebody will contract it and not realize it yet. And practicing those safe precautionary things until all of this settles down is really important for people.
So I think we all gained new electronic skills during this time, or bought new tech, or did a lot of different things. What do you think will carry forward for you in some of the creative things that you've done during the pandemic time?
Yeah, that's been surprising too. I'm 64, which for some people say that's young, but I'm definitely not in that technological bracket. I learned all about iMovie and using my iPhone as a camera to do videos and getting special microphones to use. And how to edit those together using various programs on the computer. We learned about doing all of those things. But here at Mount Olive, we were not a church that streamed our Sunday morning liturgies, but now we are. We didn't do it before because we didn't want to pretend there was an assembly that wasn't there, but now that there is one there, we're happy to share online. So we all, every Sunday, we have purchased all that stuff, and and there's a booth, things that Mount Olive has never had, but we'd have now, and are learning how to use it in a way that we're comfortable with, and that is not intrusive to the liturgy and doesn't drive the liturgy, but it's available for people. So, that's huge for people like funeral events where there are long distances that people can't do in order to be there. So this is really an important thing. I think that's huge for us here at Mount Olive. The choir, the National Lutheran Choir, instead of doing live program events last year, we created programs that were virtual. So we used pre-recorded things and then added visual pictures and videos to that. And they turned out really powerfully, we thought. And the response to them was overwhelming from all over the country, which is much easier for us to do than hopping an airplane with 60 people. But so we're going to continue doing those. So we're continuing to do 2 or 3 of those per year. And they're separate, complete independent programs. They're not just videos of what we're doing in our live concerts or live streams of our although our Christmas is live streamed this year, but we're not doing a separate program for the Christmas. But our All Saints, in a couple of weeks, we're doing 2 live events here, and also releasing a virtual All Saints program. That's a completely different program from previous recordings. Because then you can add that other dimension.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, thanks for taking time to just visit about these things. And I hope that this has kind of been helpful for other people, and for them to be able to think through their own situations. So thank you very much for just sharing it a little bit.
You're welcome. Be safe out there.
Okay, and good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you.